Welcome back, my meeps. I just want to go over some tips and tricks for board game organization. Board games are kind of expensive to begin with, so it's kind of tough for me personally to spend $20 to $30 on a board game insert. They're gorgeous and they're well made, but I can feel like I can get the same kind of feel for maybe $5, $6, $7, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. So first we're going to start with one of my favorite games, which is Five Tribes. I actually also have the expansion for Five Tribes as well. When I travel with my games, I am not the most kind traveler. I tend to tilt things on their side because I'm all trying to shove as much games as possible into a bag. Sometimes that means Tetrising them in there. So in order to kind of get everything together, sometimes I end up with my games looking like this, where things get kind of out of place. Cards get all messed up, and then I kind of have to take everything out and reorganize it and get everything together. Also, designers do normally a great job at trying to get everything together as far as components and bags and, inserts and things like that. I just tend to like to organize things my own way. I also prefer stuff that I can take out, put on the table, and have set up be super quick, super easy, and ready to go. So any game that I can do that with, I get super excited about because I'm also really weird about getting everything all organized and put together. So I'm going to show you some cheap and easy ways to do that with stuff that you can just buy at your local store, whether that be, Walmart, Target, or even a sporting store. So we'll check that out. So first thing first, what you're going to want to do is actually take out the insert, obviously, because we aren't going to be... Sometimes it's a little bit difficult. We aren't going to be using that anymore. We just want the box itself. So with the box itself, we're going to go ahead and measure the length, width, and depth. You also want to take into consideration when measuring how much room you have to work with, the actual board itself. With Five Tribes, there's really not a board. There's just the little playmat, like cheat sheet things, and then the instructions. So there's really not a whole lot to do with that, which is great. But other games that I've done this for, such as Champions of Midgard or Dead of Winter, you want to make sure that you keep that space for the board because you don't want to close it and then have like this gap that's up. I mean, that's going to be a little bit annoying and kind of not as nice looking, essentially. The other thing I'm also going to be doing is combining the Artisans of Nagala expansion in this box, because having this size box for literally a score sheet, some tiles, some little chits, and then meeples is kind of a little bit excessive. I don't want to have to carry all that around. I would much rather keep it with everything else, but in its own separate deal. So we will go over that. So as mentioned before, the first thing that you want to do is actually measure the box. And you're going to want to measure the bottom of the box. The top of the box will be a little bit different. So you're going to want to measure the bottom. Typically what I'll do is I'll do the edge because hopefully that's going to be square. And you want to always make sure to measure from the inside. So this one is right at about 11, and we'll say 3/8 to be safe. You always want to go with a little bit less rather than a little bit more because you don't want to be right at that edge and then kind of be stuck with what you have. This should be a square, so yeah, it's the same on the other side. And then depth-wise, it's actually easier to do it about here. We're at about 2 3/4. So we kind of want to keep that in mind as far as getting that measured. I have 3 go-to items that I like to use for board game organization that are super duper cheap and really easy to find. The first one are going to be bags. So normally board games come with bags for components, and it gets a little bit frustrating because I hate having to open up a bag for every single thing and then put stuff in the bag and then take stuff out of the bag and then keep all the bags organized and everything like that. It kind of gets me a little bit crazy. So they're useful for some stuff, but primarily I don't like to use these as often. It just kind of depends on the situation. They are super duper duper cheap though, so maybe you are using bags and you have some that need to be replaced because they've gotten kind of dingy or they're not quite big enough. These are great. You can actually purchase these are probably from Walmart, or you can purchase them from any craft store. They're normally going to be in the jewelry section. And this was 100 bags for $2. So you can't really beat that as far as prices go. And then a good tip is that if you want to make sure that air doesn't get trapped in the bag and it takes up space, you can just use a hole punch to punch a hole, and then that will basically allow your items to not escape, but it will allow air to escape, which is quite nice. So that's number 1, bags. Number 2 is actually little boxes like this. They do come in larger sizes. This is, you know, about 2.5 inches by 3 inches, but they do come in larger sizes. These are the ones that we'll be using for 5 tribes today. Essentially, they're just little boxes. They're super helpful. These are actually in the office supplies section. So you can get them at places like Office Depot, Office Max, Walmart, also Target maybe, things like that. So these are also very, very helpful and easy to use. Last but not least, my favorite, my go-to. You may think that this is a craft organizer or a jewelry organizer. It is not. This is a fishing tackle box of all things. So fishing tackle boxes, one, they're normally much cheaper. This one was $3. So normally they're way cheap. They actually are really good at sealing as far as all the pieces, so you don't have to worry about things shuffling from this one to this one, that kind of stuff. They come with tons of different sizes and ways that you can configure. And they're normally going to be a lot more configurable than jewelry organizers or craft organizers. A lot of craft organizers don't have these big spaces. It's just little bitty squares, and that's not really going to be useful for most games. You do want to kind of keep in mind when you're measuring your components and your parts for your game as well, that you want to kind of think about how big of an area you need. So for example, with 5 tribes, there's these tiles and things, and these are a little bit large. So to find an actual organizer that would hold these cubes or these squares is a little bit difficult. So kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at items. You want to make sure that you measure them. I bring a measuring tape with me to the store and I kind of write down those dimensions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and kind of put everything together and show you how it all fits in the end. Okay, and voila, as they say. So I'm going to go ahead and actually store the player mats and items in the bottom of the box, just because every time I play I'm going to take everything out anyway, and I think it makes it a lot easier so that you don't have to worry about them kind of like sliding out whenever you go to open the box and things. So essentially I have my genie items here as well as my expansion tiles that we're going to lay down whenever we play with the expansion. I have my item cards for the market. I have the excess blue and pink pieces. In 5 tribes, you have excess in case you play with 2 players, which I like. So I have those set out here so I don't have to worry about taking them out of the individual boxes later. I have all of my expansion items at the bottom, all of my palaces, all of my palm trees, and then I have my coins in their own respective place. So the great thing is I can close this up, shake it up, flip it over, do all this stuff, and I don't have to worry about things coming out of their place, which is amazing and I love. And this is actually measured, so it just fits perfectly right in there. So that's fantastic. And then I ended up buying these and using these as individual little containers for everybody's meeples. It makes it great to just hand them out to people. So that way I can just say, oh, you want to play pink? Here you go. Good to go. Fantastic. Again, they kind of like go in their own little places. I can set them in here like so. And now they're kind of all in there together. Honestly, the most difficult part for me was the tiles. It's hard to find something that can kind of like stack these up. I mean, they fit lovely right here, but trying to find something that can stack these up. So I am going to end up using a bag for these just because I don't want them to kind of go around. I want them to be kind of have to stick together. And I don't like using rubber bands and things on my items because they can actually, leave indentions and things like that. And I don't want that. So I'm just going to put those in there. These little items are just the score tracker and things. They're going to be fine in here on their own. Actually, if I want to, I can't put the larger, but I can put the smaller in here if I want. Put that in there like so. And then last but not least, we have our score sheets, which fit wonderfully in here. And then we have our meeples. And now my box is complete. I have everything super organized. So that way when I want to get everything taken out, I just have to take everything out. I can hand people their items and I'm good to go. If you have any questions, comments, let me know. Please like and subscribe this video. I hope to bring more tips and tricks. If you have any tips and tricks of your own, I would love to hear them. And my Instagram, which is @mymeeples, if you have any questions. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.